Hey everybody, welcome to the J and J Sports Express. I'm your co-host for the evening, Jeff Cadillac, along with my usual co-host for the evening, J.B. Ellis. J.B., how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Another exciting week. Week 15 already. Season's flying by.
Yeah, I noticed you put J and B Sports Express instead of J and J.
Well,
J and B is
I
Scotch, baby.
nothing like exciting J and B.
Yeah, the J and B. Yeah, we're gonna be drinking after the show tonight. But
There you
anyway,
go.
crazy week last week. I got to tell you, the week last week, very crazy. A lot of topsy turvy things to, just what was right was wrong and what was wrong was right. But anyway, Thursday night tonight, getting right to the schedule. You got the Rams plus 2.5 at San Francisco. I see the Bills versus the Lions. That's not the game we're supposed to be speaking about. Um,
Let's start with that one only because I'm fixing the name
all right, all
as
right.
we speak.
Okay, you got Bills plus 1.5 at the Lions. Since you're the man of the hour, JB, who do you like in this game and why?
So this is an interesting game. I mean, looking at it right now, the Bills really hurt themselves losing to the Rams. It's one of those games in the NFL schedule where teams look ahead and the Bills just blew a game that they should have won. They wasted Josh Allen's perfect record-setting day, 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns rushing. Meanwhile, the Lions just continue to win. Now the Bills are pretty much have no shot at home field advantage with Kansas City winning. So they're playing for the number 2 seed, really against Pittsburgh. Again, this is a really important win for them because they want to get that 2 seed. But when it's all said and done, the Lions kind of are set up as a perfect team right now, or what can be closest to perfect as we have in the NFL. You have a serviceable quarterback who's not the top of the league, not even the top five, but does what he needs to do to win. You have Gibbs and Montgomery, which are a perfect pairing in the backfield. You got St. Brown and Williams, wide receiver. St. Brown is, not complaining that he's not getting a lot of targets, but is one of the best receivers in the league. And Williams gives him some nice speed in the receiver spot. You got Laporta, who's a really good young tight end, and a really good offensive line. So the offensive side is really set, and they can score so many ways. Defensively, lost Hutchinson, lost a bunch of other guys, but no matter who they put in there, they're playing hard and they're playing well. So once again, even though the Bills are having a phenomenal season, can't go against the Lions until someone shows me they can beat them, especially at 1.5 points at home.
Yeah, this line has moved to even 2.5, but since we talked about it at 1.5, I got to agree with you on Detroit. The Bills, bad time management against the Rams. The Rams really socked it to them with their offense last week. That was a shootout. Rams, of course, had a nice big lead and waited for Buffalo to try to come back. And if Buffalo hadn't used that first timeout, who knows what would have happened in the final 2 minutes. The Bills definitely on a bounce back, but they're playing the Lions. I love the Lions at home. Dan Campbell, and here's another fact that probably Dan Campbell and I are the only two people that remember this. 2 years ago, Bills beat the Lions in Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. Dan Campbell is a man who uses everything he knows as an incentive to get his team pumped for every game. And I'm sure he's put this on the wall in the locker room, talking about that game as an incentive, an extra incentive to get his team motivated. But look, Detroit really doesn't need any extra motivation. They have the number 1 seed. That should be the motivation right there to keep that number 1 seed and to have home field advantage all the way through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. I love the Lions here. They played a close game last week. I was probably the only one in America to like Green Bay plus 3.5. And Detroit won by 3, as I thought it would happen, because Green Bay couldn't afford to lose that game. So they basically threw everything they could but the kitchen sink at Detroit. Problem with that game was at the end, they had to settle for a field goal instead of a going ahead touchdown. So it opened the door for Detroit to just go all the way down the field and kick a last-second field goal to win the game, which for some reason I knew it would happen. So I love Detroit in this game. Both teams have something to play for, but I like Detroit winning by between 5 and 7 points in this game, maybe 4 or 7 points, maybe even a field goal. But I'm just saying they're going to cover, they're going to win at home, and they're going to keep the number one seed going.
And when you look at Buffalo, like you mentioned, time management, they have 3 losses on the season, and 2 could be attributed to Sean McDermott. So they should legitimately be 12-1 at this point.
Yeah, they could be. Could be.
Really, really close. I mean, the Houston game was definitely his fault.
Right.
You mentioned the time management last week, so that's 2 losses. And, it's possible he's the one holding Buffalo back. And in Detroit, Gambler Dan, went for it on that 4th down, which to me, I take the field goal and trust my defense. I get why he did it. I understand he gets the first down, he runs out the clock and goes for the win. But he didn't learn from last year with Dallas, and I'm afraid it's going to show up again either in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, and he's going to cost his team.
He's going to better prepared.
We'll see. I mean,
let's get to the game tonight.
You want to talk about tonight? How about this game?
Yeah, tonight's game is the Rams at San Francisco. Rams are plus 2.5. I'll start it off. Loved, the Rams last week, big surprise. Didn't think they were going to come out the way they did against Buffalo. Their offense was on fire. Their defense, though, not exactly on fire. Gave up a lot of points, gave up a lot of opportunities. Rams, if they don't, you look at it, if they didn't have that block punt for a touchdown, they might have lost the game when it's all said and done. So even though their offense was potent, the defense wasn't so great. San Francisco last week to beat Chicago, they steamrolled them. It was 24-0 at halftime. I figured the bump a little bit that Chicago would just keep it close. I knew Chicago wasn't going anywhere, and the new head coach is worse than the old head coach. San Francisco's got a lot of injuries, but Isaac Granado, the running back, he's supposed to be playing tonight. He's the 3rd stringer. You can forget about the other 2, McCaffrey and Mason. They're not playing. San Francisco's banged up. They still, beating Chicago. So what? Big deal. They're going nowhere. They got no offensive line. Caleb Williams has had the most sacks in the NFL. I like the Rams in this game if they keep the pedal to the metal with their offense. I think it could definitely be a shootout in this game if Brock Purdy gets the chance to throw the ball and spread the ball around. But I'll tell you this, I like the Rams. If they continue what they showed us last week against Buffalo, which is a top team in the NFL, they should win tonight against the 49ers. And I like them with the points.
So here's a great spot for the 49ers. Last week they got to get their feet back on the ground after getting beat a few weeks in a row. A lot of injuries, but, you go up against either the Bears or the Giants, and you just have a chance to get your team right. So they got the Bears last week. So, I mean, anybody that's decent in the NFL can look good playing against those teams. So they got their feet by that win. The Rams, on the other hand, got a Buffalo team that was looking ahead to the Lions and snuck out a victory, played a very good game. You can't take anything away from the Rams in that win. Granted the defense could have played better, but Buffalo's offense, Josh Allen is definitely an MVP contender. And to pull out a victory with the offense outscoring them, like you said, the punt block, got to give the Rams a lot of credit for that. So they both are coming in from different types of wins. But here's where the 49ers happen to be at home. I know they're banged up, but at the same time, the Rams are going to come in thinking, we just beat Buffalo. We're back. We're ready to go. Well, the 49ers beat the Bears, and they're saying, you see, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. Much more focused look. So I like the 49ers. I think that, the Rams, health-wise, are in a much better spot. But I think that the focus will be there with San Francisco right now. Garindo's going to be looking for a chance to get a starting job somewhere, possibly next year. This is a rare opportunity when you're a 3rd string back and you get to start. start a game. So you're looking to try and improve your future here. So he's going to want to try and play a great game. They still got some great weapons on offense. The defense is still, the 49er defense, not as good as it's been in the past, but it's a good defense. And the Rams, although they're having a better year than anybody expected, I just don't see them winning this game. I like the 49ers by a close field goal, which covers the 2.5.
Wow. Okay. Big difference here. So Miami Dolphins Sunday +3 at Houston. JB, it's all yours.
This is a tough game to analyze because Houston, which started out really hot, has played very strange lately. They're playing down to teams. They're not controlling the game. Mixon last time was pretty bad last couple of weeks ago, and then looking at, they're coming off so just some unimpressive outings where the Dolphins came and got Tua back a few weeks ago after his 1900th concussion, and it totally changed their offense. So I've just been unimpressed with the Texans. They just haven't been able to move the ball the way they have. They've been playing down to teams just unimpressively all over the field. And the Dolphins, although they're not world beaters, their offense is actually viable when they have Tua. And I blame the GM for not having a quality backup, knowing you have a guy that has a concussion issue, because they'd actually be in the playoff hunt rather than hoping now by miraculously getting 2 games back with a couple ago. But because of that, I still like the Texans. I think they're just more talented, but it wouldn't shock me if the Dolphins come out and win this game.
Wow. I like the Dolphins in this game. They have the 7th rushing defense in the NFL, and they've been using it very well. It's like an underrated rush defense. And Houston needs a good run offense to take pressure off C.J. Stroud. And Stroud has regressed a little bit this season, but one of the reasons why is also he's got a tougher schedule, but that should not have a bearing on his skill set. And the problem is that, you have a great year, you have a very good year, no one expected it. The next year, you're going to have a tougher season, tougher opponents, and, people are going to be going after you. And that's what happened. And he didn't roll with the punches, and everybody spoke about it. Let's see what he does in year 2. Well, he's kind of taken a step back, and he does have Mixon, which he didn't have last year. But I like Miami here because they still think they have an outside shot at the playoffs. They're still playing with some kind of vigor in their game, even though they lost a few weeks ago to Green Bay. But that offense, if it gets going on Miami, I don't think the Texans are going to stop them. And I like the Dolphins here by winning by at least a touchdown.
Wow. Interesting. It wouldn't shock me, like I said, the Texans have had a weird year, but on the Stroud regression thing, I mean, he was without Collins, and he did lose Diggs for the whole season. So, I mean, those are 2 really good receivers. I know we didn't have Diggs last year, but when you're losing your 2 best receivers throughout the season, it's hard to be at the top level you are. But I definitely agree, he's not as good as he was last year. All right, the Battle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Steelers +5 at the Eagles. I got to tell you something. I'll start off the Steelers. And the Eagles, they both have great defenses, believe it or not. Eagles are 31 in passing in the NFL, number 1 in the rush behind Saquon Barkley. It's a very uneven way to move the ball down the field. Steelers are going to be waiting for it. I'll tell you something. I love the Steelers in this game. I think if the Eagles do win, it's going to be by a field goal because the Steelers themselves have a lot to play for in this game as well. And they're going to be scoreboard watching with Buffalo and Detroit as the Eagles are, because both of these teams really can't afford a loss because the Eagles are right behind Detroit. And if they lose a game, Eagles are not playing Detroit anytime soon unless it's in the playoffs. They can't afford to lose this game. Steelers too. Everybody's playing right behind. Steelers are now tied with Buffalo, and they're right behind Kansas City. They can't afford to lose a game as well. So everybody's going to be watching what certain teams do. Steelers are going to play. And T.J. Watt came off a basically subpar game. So he's looking to bounce back. He's going to be looking for Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley or somebody. and it's going to be the X factor in this game because he can change that game. You know, a turnover in this game is going to be huge on the score. But I really think it's going to be a close game. I think it could be a 3-point game either way. But I like the Steelers with the points. JB, what do you think?
So, real quick before I go, what did you take of the reports in the locker room that A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown's not happy with Jalen Hurts and not getting the ball enough?
Hey, you know what? During the course of the season, nobody's 100% happy with each other. And, one thing I wanted to say is Eagles are vulnerable because look what happened last week against Carolina. They almost lost. And if the guy held on to the ball, they would have lost. So it was an incomplete pass, and the guy was wide open behind the secondary. I don't really look too much into it about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is getting the money. A.J. Brown is getting some money, but he's not where the, wide receivers you could pick up left and right. A.J. Brown don't like the situation if Philly goes to another team. Jalen Hurts don't like the situation. Down goes Philly, You can't just find some guy to hand off to Saquon Barkley 40 times a game. That's not going to happen. But you need somebody who needs to run the defense. I don't really, look too much into it. So they don't like each other. So they don't like how things are being done. Are they winning? Yes. Are they going to keep on winning? Probably. But, see what happens after the season. I'm sure, A.J. Brown will come out or somebody will say something and maybe he'll be on another team and Philly picks up another wide receiver.
So this is a huge game, especially with Detroit playing Buffalo. I think the Eagles, in their head, say they have to win this game. The Steelers, still, I don't know if Pickens is fully healthy or if he's going to play or be limited. That's really important, especially that's a great way to beat the Eagles is through the air, and that he's their best receiver. So I think that's going to be an issue. The one thing that the Steelers have, they have this guy on the sideline, Mike Tomlin, best coach in the NFL. He finds ways to coach his team up. So getting 5 points from Mike Tomlin is a gift. Who's going to win the game? That's a coin toss. If the Eagles do what the Eagles do, on paper they're better than the Steelers, but it's not going to be easy to run through that Steelers defense. Even though they have Barkley, one of the top 3 backs in the NFL right now, that doesn't mean he's going to get 100 yards this game. That defense is going to step up and put pressure on him. I do see Jalen Hurts trying to force the ball to Brown this week. I just have a feeling that he's going to throw 1 or 2 extra passes his way, and it may cause, an interception or something. I just feel like that's set up, and it's just a bad situation. I don't think overall it's going to hurt the Eagles team, but I can see a turnover coming from it, because he gave him a second look or he didn't look away and he went straight to him to try and placate what's happening. And it could all be bogus just to, sometimes you hear bogus stuff in the media and you're like, there's really nothing wrong. But I don't know. I kind of can see that happening where he goes 1 extra pass and maybe gets picked off there. But, like I said, 5 points is a lot of points. I think this game can go either way. The Steelers' defense will keep them in. Pickens on the offense, if he's healthy and good to go, helps the Steelers' offense. Russ could throw him that moon ball. Besides for that, I mean, the Eagles, they're a good team. The Steelers, surprisingly better than anyone expected, both in the top 2 or 3 of their conference. We'll see where they end up, but, I don't know who's winning, but I take 5 points in a second in this game. All right. Packers versus the Seahawks.
Yeah, Sunday night. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, we got a good game on Sunday night. The Packers coming off a loss to Detroit. It's a tough game. They had opportunities to win this game. They were outplayed in the first half. Dan Campbell let them get into the second half, going for it with that bad 4th down on the inside the 35, and then a turnover. And they got right back in the game. They established a lead. But they're in their progression where they're getting better. I always look at teams, it's a process to become a championship team. Look at Detroit, for example. Remember when they were like 1-8 and they won like 7 or 8 in a row to end the year? and they
Yep.
just missed the playoffs. And then last year they got to the playoffs and they, lost that game in the playoffs that they should have won. But it's a progression. Now this year they look dominant. The Packers are in the infancy of it. They're getting there. The Seahawks, on the other hand, they were in first place in their division, and they're doing well. They beat Arizona. They had a nice game in Arizona last week. Big win. They're battling for their division, and the Packers are battling for a wild card position. So both these teams have to win this game. It looks like the Walker's out for this game, from what I understand. So that's going to leave it to Charbonnet. Good backup running back, but he's not Walker. Walker is, the beast of the backfield. When you look at the Seattle offense, Geno Smith, he really reinvented his career in Seattle. But at the same time, he's Geno Smith. He's not, Jalen Hurts. He's not, a top tier quarterback, but he's serviceable. I kind of like the Packers here. I think they're going to bounce back. I think that, they're going to find a way to win. Jordan Love, when he's healthy, he's better than anyone expected, I think. Their defense is decent. Their offense has some nice pieces. Josh Jacobs running the ball. The valuable receivers. They got Dobbs. They got Reed. They got Kraft at tight end. Watson too. I mean, they have a lot of good young talent, and I think this is a big game for them. I think they step up, go into Seattle, which is a tough place to play. The 12s, they're loud and they're into it, but they just played in Detroit, so they're battle tested. So I like the Packers to win by about 4 here.
I got to agree with you. I like the Packers in this game too. I think they bounced back off the Detroit game on Thursday night. They've had time to prepare. They've also rested. Seattle, they beat Arizona again. That's kind of like a so what. They're playing also for the NFC West title, which is up for grabs still because nobody's really dominant this year in that division. Geno Smith, right. He's been playing a lot better with Seattle than he ever did before. They still have problems in the red zone. Once they get in the red zone, they seem to, make multiple mistakes and either turn the ball over or settle for 3 points when they should be settling for touchdowns. Beating Arizona from the get-go last week, just surprised everybody because I thought Arizona would bounce back as well. So, Seattle, yeah, it's a tough place to play, but it's not as tough as it is without Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll made that place like a really tough place to play. Jordan Love, good quarterback, has to stay focused, can't turn the ball over. Seattle can creep up on you. All of a sudden they get a turnover. No one expected it. But Packers are playing, they're behind Detroit. They're behind Minnesota. They have to keep winning. They have to keep winning because they cannot lose games because they can fall, in the standings, and then all of a sudden somebody becomes a wild card over them. They will win this game. I like it between 3 to 7 points. And it'll be a good game. It'll go down there, but Green Bay will find a way to win, and they'll move forward.
So, last 2 weeks we did some bonus time, and we've been perfect with bonus time picks. Do you have any games? I'm looking at the games for this week. There's no other games I really like that I'd want to talk about. Is there anything you?
Not really. There's, Atlanta playing on Monday night also against Vegas. Who cares? Max Crosby, look for him to be on another team next year. Atlanta, you got to give Michael Penance a chance, but they're handcuffed with that big contract with Kirk Cousins. Minnesota should beat the crap out of Chicago on Monday night. That's not, if they can't do that, then they're fakers. Chicago has no offensive line, and Caleb Williams is basically dying behind there, and they have to build that offensive line. He's been sacked 56 times. There's a lot of games really that this week. Baltimore versus the Giants. We all know the Giants are going to lose that game. By how much, it's still to be determined. Baltimore still has to, find a way, and they're not gangbusters. So with the point spread on that one, I'm kind of leading the Giants just because they might get some dummy touchdown at the end, even though the game's been decided.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
three scores is a lot to say. Okay, you're going to win it. You're going to beat a team by 3 scores. That's a lot in the
It
NFL.
is.
In college, it's not a lot, but in the NFL, when every team has college all-stars on it, that's a lot. So, there's definitely some games to be worried about, and there's some other games that are just filler this weekend.
The only other good game that I see out there is Tampa Bay going to play the Chargers. Tampa Bay took the lead in the division last week. Atlanta has a game that they should win against the Raiders, where Tampa Bay has a tough game against the Chargers, because this isn't, last year's Chargers. This is Harbaugh's Chargers.
Right.
I think the Chargers will win the game, and Atlanta will be back in first place, but I'm not confident enough to break that game down because the Chargers offense has really been pedestrian, and especially without Dobbins. And the Bucks, Mayfield has just been Mayfield. He's on fire, but at the same time, he'll throw 2 picks in the middle of nowhere because he's a gunslinger.
That's right.
He's not afraid to go out there and just throw the next one. If it's picked off, all right, we get the ball back. I'm going to go out there and do it again. So I got a lot of respect for him for reinventing his career in Tampa, but I can see that game going either way. I wouldn't be able to give any good advice on that.
So where can we find you, JB?
So on X, JB _ the program, Sideline Sports every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and SidelineSportsNet.com is the website. Last show of the year coming up on Tuesday, and then we got a 2-week break because of Christmas and New Year's. Not going to know what to do. 2 weeks off. That's crazy.
Well, next week, because Christmas is on Wednesday, we may have to do the show on Tuesday. So, folks, if you're watching
that's Christmas Eve, so I'm not going to be available. It'll have to be Thursday.
Oh, okay.
We're going to have to skip.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks. So it'll be next Thursday for the show.
Yeah, Christmas Eve's important. But what about you? Where can people find you?
JeffCadillac.com, at Jeff Cadillac 1 on Twitter. Every week with my boss, my buddy J.B, and Best Bet on Twitter every Friday. Last 2 weeks, just tough ones, tough losses. And but that's the way it goes. Overall, pretty good for the season. And, hey, we'll take each week as it comes.
Can't win every game, but you do a damn good job. I'm impressed by what you've done. Overall, you win way more than you lose. I do have to say I did love Carolina the last 2 weeks as huge underdogs. This week they get to be favorites in Dallas. Going to be a little bit different for that team being a favorite. Curious to see how they do.
I like Carolina in that game because Dallas, Carolina. Remember, last year Dallas came into Carolina and kicked their butt like 33-10. So this is kind of payback. It's the same Carolina team, just playing at a better level, and Dallas has basically just wrote it in.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, they were easy wins against the spread the last couple of weeks because Kansas City doesn't blow anybody out. And I just looked at what they did the last 5 weeks, and I said they're not going to lose by that many. They're going to lose, but now that they're favorites, completely different. Got to throw out all that logic. Be interesting to see, but we will definitely see you next week, guys. Have a happy Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
And we'll catch up with you next week. Don't forget, follow Jeff's Best Pick of the Week on Friday, Best Bet of the Week. We'll see you next week.